Hello everybody, Shinjo here, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I am going to be ranking my top 10 Paldean Pokemon. Now, if you watched my previous video where I ranked the Paldean Pokemon, you might see a couple of familiar faces on here. But at the same time, it's been a couple of weeks later now from when I recorded that initial video. So some things might be different, some things might be the same. I might have had more of an opportunity to use different mons. So that's why I'm making this. That and the fact that I've already recorded top 10s of every other region's Pokédex. But in case you haven't put 2 and 2 together yet, there are obviously going to be spoilers for the entire Paldean Pokédex. There might be minor spoilers for some story things, but I'm going to try and steer clear of that. There are very few Pokemon in this video that have already been shown in trailers. So if you haven't played the entire game, or if you're not familiar with the decks, I would advise not watching this. But for everybody else, let's get started. So barely making it in the top 10 is Fido's evolution, Dasbun. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. A lot of these is more speculation, but ever since I saw Fido, I really liked it. Obviously, we also had 2 other dog Pokemon in this region, so it was hard to pick. But I was initially going to have Fido on my team, but some things fell through. But now in the post game, I have a Fido on a competitive scene, so I can use it to fight against fire types because of its well-baked body ability. And it also has a pretty wide variety in its moveset. Psychic Fangs, Crunch, Play Rough for Stab, and it can also get pretty interesting moves. I think mine also has like Stomping Tantrum or Earthquake or something. It's a pretty good mon, and I like the design, how it incorporates the dog elements to the bred elements. That's really clever. At number 9, we have Armarouge and Ceruledge. I couldn't pick one over the other, and since they're version exclusives evolving from the same Pokemon anyway, I figure it's fine putting them together. My answer on which one I prefer could change depending on the day. I picked Scarlet, so I have more of an opportunity to use Armarouge than Ceruledge, but the fact of trying to go through different Terra raids to get a Ceruledge, constantly losing, not being able to join, and finally getting one, very rewarding as well. From what I've seen, a lot of people prefer Ceruledge to Armarouge, but I haven't had an opportunity to use either one. Just based off of design, I really like Armarouge's Mega Man sort of aspects, but Ceruledge is just that sort of edginess that I can't tell if I really like it or really don't. Number 8 is Iron Thorns, the future form of Tyranitar. This thing is basically the reason why I couldn't decide between Scarlet and Violet. Back when I was pre-ordering it, I went with Scarlet because I liked Armarouge more and I wanted to be hipster. But then I saw the past and future forms before the games came out. I saw the Tyranitar, I immediately jumped ship and went to Violet. But then, before the payment went through, I switched back to Scarlet, and now I have no legitimate way to get a Tyranitar outside of trading. But it's still a really cool design. I think outside of most of the future forms, this is the one I prefer, just because it makes so much sense to have a future form of a Tyranitar, because he's literally based off of Godzilla, so Mecha Godzilla is inevitable. If I'm not mistaken, he's electric fighting? Or maybe that's the Hariyama. I think he might be electric dark. I can't remember. All I know is it's a pretty interesting typing. Kind of surprised it's not part steel typing, but still really cool. Number 7 is Bisharp's new evolution, King Gambit. So now that I get a better look at it, I can see more design elements like the big head crest that it has. It also has a sword in there. But just as a design alone, it is a perfect cap off to the Bisharp line. Because we have Pawniard based off of pawns, Bisharp based off of Bishop, and now King Gambit. He's literally a king, and the chess theme still works. And also he's got a sort of a Shogun sort of vibe. Like, he will be the big ruler over all the Bisharp and Pawniard, and I just really like this thing. I would prefer it not to be a Dark Steel typing, but just for the line itself, it makes more sense. I don't know what other type you could have given it besides Dark Steel. Although I guess for the Terra type sort of mechanic that you have, you could get one with a Ghost Terra type so it wouldn't be quad weak to fighting. The way that you evolve Bisharp into this thing is really unique, and I just really like this thing. It made a Mon from Unova that I didn't really care about, one of my favorites. Number 6 is Palafin, and realistically I could have put Finizen here as well, because there's very little difference between Finizen and Palafin's designs, just the heart on his chest, but that's the thing I like about it. I like how to evolve it into Palafin, you need to go to Union Circle and connect with friends, and that is what gives Finizen the heart that it has when it's Palafin. That's a really nice touch. I like the way its ability works, where you flip turn or any sort of other switch mechanic, and then bring it back in and it just becomes a big beefy beat stick. The only catch is I prefer Finizen and Palafin. I don't really like the hero form of Palafin. It's definitely stronger, that's for sure, but just as a design, it's kind of busy. I can't tell one thing over the other, and again I say, it's definitely broken, but I just like Palafin and Finizen. Number 5, right in the middle of the list, is Great Tusk, the Donphan Primal form. I really like this thing. This is no doubt my favorite of the past forms, although I could flip-flop between that depending on the day. But this, as well as the other Primal forms, are what I was more used to since I played Scarlet. If it wouldn't be Great Tusk, it would probably be Slitherwing, because I just really like that thing. I mainly included the Great Tusk just for its unique ground fighting typing. That's really cool, and I like how it's a Titan Pokemon that you face, and it gives you an idea that something's going on at Area 0, and then when that part of the story gets built up, you realize it was all thanks to Donphan from the very beginning. Or Great Tusk. I flip-flop between calling it Great Tusk and Donphan, which I do with a lot of the future and past forms, but that's just gonna be taking some getting used to with these weird names that they have. Number 4 is Chien Pao. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this is my favorite of the Legendary Quartet. Since you can play Scarlet and Violet at any pace that you want, any way that you want, I was literally adding mons to my team, taking mons out of my team, trying to figure out what would work best for my team, and there was a time I considered getting this thing once I got to the level cap and using it on my team, because you get this thing at level 60, which definitely is broken, but also it has an ability that drops defense of the opponent, so that makes it a little bit more busted. I just love the Snow Leopard vibes. I love that its tusks are swords. I really like that. The typing I could do without. I like the Dark Ice typing as far as offensive, but I feel like you could have done something different personally. Since there's Pokédex entries about how these aren't actually the Pokemon, or they are or aren't, I don't know exactly what it is. I feel like instead of making them all Dark typing, you could have gotten away with making them all Ghost typing instead, which will make it a pretty cool Ice Ghost typing, second only to Frostlass. But just as design alone, it's really sick. Speaking of Ghost typing, number 3 is Skeledirge, Fuecoco's final evolution. So, I, much like a lot of people, got spoiled by the Pokemon that were in the game, the starter evolutions, all this stuff, and even though I saw what Fuecoco evolved into, it wasn't a very clear image. I was still determined to pick Fuecoco anyway because he's just my boy. And after I saw this thing in battle and got to use it, I really love this thing. I like how it's sort of what's the word? A symbiotic relationship between it and the Firebird on his snout. I really like that, and the mask is really cool as well. I love that it's a singer, and its signature ability is just a fire type charge beam. That's really cool as well. I wouldn't entirely have been opposed to something that looked like Feraligatr, but with what we got, I really like it. And among other cool ghost typings in this region. Speaking of, number 2 is Annihilate. This was one that I went out of my way to add to my team, even though I already had a ghost typing on my team. This thing is just absolutely sick. I love this thing, and just to break the fourth wall a bit, this is my first level 100 Pokemon that I've had in Scarlet. I didn't do it by choice, mind you. I didn't want it to be level 100. It's just easy to have a go run around with the Let's Go mechanic. Plus, it's easy to knock out Chanseys when I'm grinding. So it just kind of happened that it ended up being the first thing that's level 100. I love how Primeape's entries about it being so mad that it dies was a perfect payoff for Primeape. I think personally, based off of evolutions in this gen, they did really good to flesh out more of the older Pokemon like Bisharp and Primeape especially. It's just really cool. Being the first ghost fighting typing that isn't a legendary is really cool as well. Number 1, as a lot of you probably expected, is Tinkaton. I just can't shut up about this thing. I love how the body itself is just cute and innocent until you realize it's carrying around a gigantic, massive hammer. I love this thing, and while I do agree that the other two forms are super similar to it, that there's not much differentiation, I just love this thing. I love how it's got a sort of reverse Hyper Beam where you can't use Gigaton Hammer twice in a row. That's really neat and a very cool signature move for this thing. But at the same time, it was definitely a tough choice. I think at the moment, Tinkaton's my favorite, but another day I might prefer Annihilate more. So number 2 and number 1 could easily change, but just off rip, I love Tinkaton. This thing is my absolute favorite from Paldea. So those are my top 10 Pokemon from the Paldea region. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. What are your favorite Pokemon from Paldea? If you enjoyed, hit that like button down below, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time. Momentai.